Hello, Patchwork Husband here. Welcome to Studio 39 in Baldock. I am, as usual, in the classroom. Today we've got a project video for you. Quick and easy things to do with fat quarters, as promised. I've got two fat quarters here, and from those two fat quarters we're going to make two projects, because we're nothing if not economical at Studio 39. The first project is quick and easy makeup bag. Why would you make a makeup bag? I hear you cry you don't wear makeup, or if you do, you should ask for your money back. Well, you're right, of course I don't wear makeup, but they make very good gifts. So, first project, quick and easy makeup bag. Here we go. So let's start by having a spin through the tools and consumables that we're going to use for this project. So first off the tools, we've got our sewing machine, obviously. That's got a nice new sharpish needle in it, and we've got a 1/4 inch foot on there. We also need a cutting mat, a rotary cutter and a ruler, some scissors, a pair of compasses for drawing circles, fabric marking pencil, creasing tool and pins. For the consumables, so to speak, we've got two fat quarters in contrasting colours. I've decided to use two of our batik promotion fat quarters. You also need a piece of wadding fusible on one side, approximately 14 by 22 inches. We need piecing thread and full bobbin and some top stitch quilting thread. I'm using my favourite variegated. It's running a bit low now. And of course, a button. Let's preview the 8 steps we're going to follow to complete this project. The first step is to cut the fabric that we're going to require from the two fat quarters and set the rest aside for another project. Step 2, we're going to work out the diameter of the circle shape that we need to form the flap and cut a template. Step 3, we're going to mark both pieces of fabric and the wadding to size and cut them. Step 4, we're going to make the rouleau. Step 5, we're going to turn back 1/2 inch at the bottom and trim the wadding flush. Step 6, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam around the 3 sides of the bag, not the bottom. Step 7, we're going to relieve the curves, turn it the right way out, press it, and sew 2 seams along the bottom. And finally, step 8, we're going to fold it up to form the bag shape, pin it and top stitch a 1/4 inch seam all the way around the 3 sides of the bag, excluding the bottom, and finally sew on the button. Step 1 is to cut 6-inch strips off the two fat quarters. Now I've put the two fat quarters closely together, lined up properly. I've got my ruler in place ready to do the cut. This is a 6.5 inch ruler, so I need it to overlap on the left hand side by 1/2 inch. So there's my 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch, 6 inches. I've got the fabric over to the right because I am right-handed. And now I will cut off my 2 strips. There we are. Let's see if that's gone through. Ooh, yes it has. This is going to form our second project, but I just need to cut a little strip off the top, which I'll do next. And these are the pieces that we're going to use for our quick and easy makeup bag. I hope it was obvious that I cut my strip off the long edge of the fat quarter. That's what I did. I'm sure you worked that out. Now I'm going to cut 1.25 inches off the top of my 2 6-inch strips. This is going to be to make the special word, I'm just going to have to look this up, to make the rouleaus. If you don't know what that is, that will make 2 of us. So I'm sure it will become clear later. Got my ruler all set up for 1.25 inches. 2 strips cut. They're going to be part of this project. This is set aside for the next project. Step 2 is to make the template to cut the round flap. Now we could do a half circle, but that's a bit too much. We want something that's a bit flatter, so a larger radius of circle. So I've been racking my brains trying to work out what formula we can use to calculate that, and I've decided that what we're going to do is we're going to measure the width of the fabric, which is 13.5 inches, and then we're going to multiply that by 1.2. So I'm going to put in 13.5 into my calculator times 1.2 equals 16.2. So we'll call that 16 inches. So we've got a circle with a diameter, I beg your pardon, which is 1/5 bigger than the width of the fabric. To achieve that, I'm going to set my compasses to a radius of 8 inches, which will give me a diameter of 16 inches. I've marked the centre of my piece of paper already, so let's just whack on our circle. So I'm now going to cut that out and I'll come back to you. Something that I neglected to mention is that if you don't possess a pair of compasses, or your compasses are too small, you can use anything round to make your template, as long as it's got approximately the correct diameter. So you could use a plate or a casserole or a bucket, anything that's round with a diameter approximately the same as the one you're looking for. Incidentally, that 1.2 times the fabric width formula will work with any fabric width. For step 3, we're going to be cutting all 3 pieces. That's the 2 pieces of fabric and the wadding out to the correct shape and size. In preparation for that, I'm going to fuse my fusible wadding to the wrong side of the fabric I've chosen to form the inside of my bag, this light blue. So I've got it cut exactly to size. That's the fusible side of the wadding. That's the back side of the fabric. I'm going to fuse those 2 together. I suppose if you wanted to, you could use ordinary wadding and 505 adhesive. We've done that in the past, but this would make a nice change, I thought. So I'm going to iron that on now. Then we'll put the other piece of fabric on and cut it out to the right shape. Well, that was tremendous fun. You iron it through the fabric, obviously. If you try to do it on the other side, it might melt. You need to hold the hot iron for 10 or 15 seconds over the entire surface area, and it fuses on. It's almost like magic, isn't it? So that's ready. Let's move onwards and upwards. So I've now got a nice little stack of materials. I've got the wadding at the bottom, then I've got the fabric that's going to be the inside fabric, and then I've got the fabric that's going to be the outside fabric, and I've put the good side towards the good side of the inside. So we're now looking at the back of it. I put it on the ruler exactly in line with one of the lines running in this direction. I found the centre of the fabric by folding it in half and marked it. I found the centre of my template by folding it in half and marked it, and then I've applied it, making sure that these bits at the side line up with perpendicular lines so that I know that I've got it straight. So now I can mark it and cut it. Using my fabric marker. Perhaps counterintuitively, the green lead shows up really rather well. Marking complete. I'll get my scissors out now and cut it. I've cut those. It's always nice to check your work. So in theory, if I put these 2 pieces together, they should be the same size. And that is not not a bad effort at all. So I'm very pleased with that. We can just put the ruler across the top just to make sure it all looks square. Lovely. So that's going to form our flap. End of step. We've reached step 4, and we're now going to make the rouleau. That's a very sophisticated continental sounding word, isn't it? I think it means button loop. What we're actually going to do is make a loop of fabric that we can use to hold our button. Now I've decided to use the fabric that matches the outside of the bag. If you remember, we cut a strip of each. I'm going to put this one aside in a moment and use it in our other project, but I can show you how we're going to fold it using this piece. So we fold it in half, just mark the finger press the center line, and then we can fold the edges in, and when we've done that, fold the whole thing in on itself, so all the raw edges are encapsulated inside it. I'm going to press that with the iron, and then I'm going to sew it up and cut it to the correct length, because at the moment it's too long. Pressed and ready to sew. We've got a 1/4 inch foot on the machine. We put the nice thread in because this bit will be visible. So I'm going to try and do it about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, which is clearly going to test my sewing skills, but here we go. I've exceeded my own expectations. That's not too bad. So now we're going to cut that down to size. I reckon for this size of button we need this to be about 3 inches long, and then of course we need a 1/4 inch at each end to secure it. So I'm going to cut that to 3.5 inches and then secure it to the piece of work. So I've cut that to length. We're going to secure it like this. So with the two ends with the center line between them, but actually I'm going to put it between the 2 layers of fabric. So it's going to go on top of the blue one and underneath this one. So I'll pin that in place in such a way that the pins won't prevent me from sewing round the edge. So there's the rouleau pinned in place. That's my fact for the day. A rouleau is not in fact a fancy French dessert, but a button loop. So that's that step complete. We move on now to step 5. Now when we came to turn this around the right side out, we realised the way we'd done it didn't work as well as it could have. What we'd done originally was folded over the fabric at the bottom, which is what we're going to be showing you in the next step, and then sewn the side seam, encapsulating that folded over fabric. That's not such a great idea in retrospect. So what we've done is unpick that last bit and re-sewn the side seam right down to the raw edges, and then we can turn it up afterwards. That works much better. So the step I'm about to show you, bear in mind that actually you don't want to do that. Turn it up but not quite to the end, and when you sew the side seams, sew right down to the raw edge. So we're up to step 5. The purpose of step 5 is to encapsulate the raw edges at the bottom here. So what we're going to do is turn that back 1/2 inch. So I'll press it and pin it, and then I'll do the same the other way, 1/2 inch, press it and pin it, and then when we turn it the right way out, we'll have nice, neat, encapsulated edges at the bottom. So there we are, that's pinned, that's the end of the step. We move on now to step 6. Now step 6 is to sew round the 3 edges of what's going to become our bag, not the bottom, round the sides. Before I do that, I need to mark the pivot point, because I've got to transition from a straight line here round a fairly sharp bend. So what I'm going to do is mark the pivot point using my 1/4 inch guide on my rule, 1/4 of an inch from the edge at the point where it starts to turn into the flap, and I can do exactly the same this end as well. So now I've got marks where I'll stop the machine, leave the needle down, lift the foot, saw the work round, put the foot down, carry on sewing around the curve. That's the theory. Wish me luck. Here I go. We put piecing thread in because you're not going to be able to see this seam, and it seems a shame to use the more expensive thread, so as ever we're being economical. Here I go. Right, I'm coming up on my pivot point. Slowly, slowly, catchy monkey. Perfect. Foot up. Swivel my work. Foot down. Keep calm and carry on. Now I'm coming up to the rouleau, which is going to take a little bit of pin wrangling. Slowly, slowly. There. Leave the needle down, lift the foot. Try not to get tangled on the pins at the back. Actually, I need to do one more stitch there. I've gone too early. Let's put in one more stitch. There we go. That's better. So down the other side, and the ordeal is nearly complete. There we are. Seam round the edge, step complete. So step 7 awaits us. So what I've done so far is remove all the pins that were pinning it together now that we've secured it around the edge. I've readjusted the pins at the bottom, which I did have in that direction, but that was going to prevent me turning it inside out, so I've repinned the bottom there. And then we've relieved the curve here. You do that by just snipping at regular intervals up to but not touching the seam, and that will enable the fabric to stretch around the curve. So onwards and upwards, we'll turn that inside out, and then we're going to sew along the bottom. So to complete this step, I've pinned the bottom, and we're going to sew 2 seams along there, one really close to the edge and one at 1/4 of an inch. Before we do that, we've changed back to our quilting thread. I say we, obviously the boss has changed the threads, because I said I was right-handed earlier, but when it comes to sewing machines I'm just cack-handed. So that was the royal we. Let's give it a go. I'm going to do the 1/4 inch seam first. So there's the first seam. So I've completed step 7 by sewing the second stitch line very, very close to the edge. So we've reached the final step, step 8. What we're going to do now is fold the bottom up to form the bag like this. And then we're going to sew all the way around the edge, the flap and the other edge. Now if you wanted to quilt this, you could do that, but you'd have to do it before we fold it up and secure the edges. The other thing I've done is mark my pivot points as I did before, so I know where to stop and perform the pivot. So I'll give it a sew. Okay, so there we have it. I just need to unpin it, and then we need to sew on the button. Now that involves the use of a hand sewing needle, and as we know, I can't be trusted with anything as dangerous as that. So when I say we will sew on the button, what I mean is the boss will sew on the button, give it back to me, and then I'll pretend I did it. Does that work for you? It certainly works for me. There. I've sewn the button on. Finished. Pretty good, huh? Contrasting blue. That's a beautiful thing. Now, I've said this is a makeup bag, but why not use it to put your tools in? Or, you'd think we'd planned this. I've got my Microsoft tablet here. Look at that. Makeup case, tool case, tablet case. Beautiful thing. I love these batiks. No, I've said this before, no two pieces are the same. Beautiful. These are from our 2 fat quarters. Got a nice contrasting blue from our promotion batiks pack. There we go. A quick and easy thing to do with less than 2 fat quarters. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, press the like, perhaps consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Patchwork Husband, over and out.